Another day, another Switch 2 rumor. Hey everyone, Andre here with 6 potential new details about the Nintendo Switch 2. Now I know what you're thinking, another freaking Switch 2 rumor for a system that hasn't even been officially announced yet. And look, I hear you, I'm getting annoyed at them too. But in this case, the rumors not only seem to be credible, or plausible I should say, but they come from a credible source in that it's MobaPad, an actual accessory manufacturer who's planning on making controllers for this new system, laying out these details. They put it on their official Facebook account and now on their B-side account, which is what we're looking at right now, which is a popular video sharing site in Japan. And they would have nothing to gain by knowingly posting false information, especially as ones, as I said, who are, I think as I said at this point, who are planning on making controllers for the Switch 2. Now, as to why they're putting this information out there, I can't exactly speak to, but in any case, let's go through the details and we can talk about them together, because I think there's some really interesting stuff here, even if I think a lot of it were things we were at least, if not expecting, we're hoping for. So first up, number 1, as kind of reported yesterday from a different source, the second generation of Nintendo Switch, the Switch 2, will still support the existing Joy-Con and Pro controllers. Thank God, I'm so freaking tired of buying 4 of these every generation, or 8 in the case of Joy-Cons, I guess. So yeah, that is great to hear. They also confirmed that the newer controllers sound like they're still equipped with the same HD tech and motion control tech as the current Switch, which only makes complete sense. But that is great to know that the existing controllers will seemingly still work on the Switch 2, if not just for backwards compatibility, hopefully for everything, and spoilers for point 2 there. But yeah, that's all sounding good so far, and we'll have more on the controllers soon enough. Moving on though, let's talk about the thing I just mentioned, backwards compatibility, because point 2 is that the Switch 2 is backwards compatible with Switch 1 games, and to kind of separate the two libraries, the Switch 2 cartridges will have a physical difference that will prevent them from fitting in the Switch 1. Now, if you're an old school Nintendo fan like myself, then you may recognize Nintendo has done this before with the Game Boy Color, in that Game Boy Color games have a part of the cartridge that didn't exist on the original Game Boy, and it's preventing them from being able to physically fit. So they're probably going to do the exact same thing here, it sounds like, where Switch 2 cartridges won't fit in the Switch 1, whereas Switch 1 cartridges will fit on any Switch system, and again confirming, or saying, as they say here, that the Switch 2 is backwards compatible, which, thank God. I mean, I expected it. Who did we really not expect at this point? Pretty much every Nintendo handheld has been backwards compatible, and it would be so stupid for the Switch 2 not to have been. They have that giant library, giant catalog of games, and an entire ecosystem that it would make zero sense to ignore. So it's good to have that seemingly confirmation, as I expected, that the Switch 2 will be backwards compatible. Alright, let's move on to point 3. The new version of Joy-Cons is larger. The structure of the side rail has been changed to a magnetic suction type, and the 2 small shoulder buttons, being SL and SR, are now metal instead. So these 2 right here, they're no longer little plastic things, they're going to be metal, which sounds much nicer. Magnetic suction is electromagnetic suction technology, which controls magnetic suction through current, meaning that the magnetic properties of it only works when it's being provided with power, or maybe when it's not being provided with power. I'm thinking back to my 3rd grade class now where we covered this, but in any case, that's kind of interesting. It is particularly worth noting that on the basis of the L, ZL, R, and ZR buttons on the side of the Joy-Con handle, a 3rd button is being added on the left and right sides. So they're pointing out that there's going to be a new button now below ZL rather L and ZL, or R and ZR, which would be right about here, which is really weird to me. That seems like a weird place to have a 3rd button, but maybe they're going for the kind of what's it called, the handles on some controllers that basically give you a whole give your finger something else to grab onto. So that could make the controls a little bit more complicated, but hey, ultimately a good thing, I think. And that applies to both of them. So you would have an additional button on the sides of both controllers, which is really, or on the, underneath the existing buttons of both controllers, which is pretty interesting. But that's not the only new button, but they go on to say that at the same time, the right handle, the right Joy-Con, has an additional function button below the home button. So they're saying there's going to be a new function button right here below the home button, which is something that's kind of unexpected, because what else could they add? They have the camera button, the snapshot button, they also have home, which honestly for me, I wish you would add the home button to this controller, because it sucks when you're playing with a single Joy-Con with the left one, you can't go back home. But, it's possible they could swap the button functions around too. We don't know for sure, though that's probably unlikely if they're bringing they're allowing the existing controllers to also work, but that would just be confusing. So I really have no idea what the third button is going to do. Maybe it could be a social type thing, so you have your snapshot button and your way of quickly sharing it. Seems a little needless, but maybe it could do something else too. Maybe there's a function critical to this new Switch that you would need that for. You know, some kind of hardware toggle of some kind. I really have no idea at this point, but it's interesting all the same. So yeah, so to recap, new function button right here, and then 2 new inputs below the existing 2 on the back of the controller, which crazy. And then of course metal buttons for the SL and SR. All right, let's move on to, and they're also showing where that other home button I mentioned, or the other face button would go right there, just to clarify. So number 4, there's still a Type-C interface, so USB Type-C, under the 2nd generation of the Switch, and the appearance of the new dock has not changed much. The corners on one side become more rounded and support 4K output image quality. So basically they're saying the existing dock looks, or the upcoming dock looks pretty similar to the current one, which is a little disappointing, but I'm hoping that they shrink that down. I really dislike how big that existing dock is, but otherwise it still supports Type-C, USB-C, and it's now capable of outputting a 4K image, which, hey, that's pretty great. Honestly, I'm not, you know, I'm not the biggest person, or I don't think we need 4K, but it's going to be nice. You know, having that enhanced fidelity on your TV will be great. But that's not the only place that's getting enhanced fidelity, and we'll see if that's coming up for number 5. Okay, it's not, so spoiler alert. Next one is number 5. The new version of the Switch 2 has a dampening bracket on the back with a wider adjustable range. They're talking about the what is this called here? The kickstand. There we go. Jeez, man, it's Saturday. My brain's already mush. Where I guess it's going to allow for a greater range than even the OLED, I suppose. Although the OLED's range is pretty great, so I don't know what exactly they're suggesting here. Honestly, I don't know how you would really much improve this. I don't have really any complaints with how the OLED's stand works. The original Switch, yes, that one's kickstand was pretty weak. OLED's is fine, but hey, they're gonna make it better. You know, great. Maybe it suggests that it's more resilient to, I don't know, being knocked around perhaps when it's standing up. I'm not quite sure. Let's move on to the final point now. Being 0.6, the screen size is upgraded to 8 inches and the screen is upgraded to 1080p. So yes, so instead of a 720p screen, we're now getting a 1080p screen, which is the current maximum output of the current Switch. So that's going to make handheld gaming look better than ever, especially on an 8-inch screen, which is 1 inch greater diagonally than the OLED, and almost 2 inches bigger than the standard Nintendo Switch system. So that's pretty exciting, because if with a bigger screen being 8 inches, you would want a higher resolution supported. Otherwise, you're going to start noticing, you know, pixelization, and especially in this day and age, you know, where we have phones that have like incredible displays, right? So, so that's really nice. And again, so that combined with the 4K when you have it docked, it sounds like the Switch 2 is going to be a pretty impressive looking system when it comes to at least visual fidelity, at least in the most technical of senses. Whether or not the actual visuals back that up, we have yet to see, but it sounded like so far from everything we've heard, it's probably going to be a pretty powerful system, at least compared to the Switch 1. So there you go, everyone. Those are the 6 details. I'll link to this in the description below if you want to check out for yourself. Again, I don't think anything too earth-shattering here. The biggest surprises for me are actually the new Joy-Con buttons. Like, that is actually really interesting. And I'm trying to remember what the... paddles! That's what I was thinking of. So I wonder if they're going for like a paddle type thing here. And plus, not only will that help, you know, give you 2 additional buttons for when you're using both Joy-Cons or a Pro Controller, but even just having 1 Joy-Con, that's 1 more button that you have access to, even if it may not be the easiest to press if you're holding it this way, which maybe, I don't know, maybe it will. I have no idea. We don't know the full form factor. And I think too, I think I mentioned as well in this place that in this one that the Joy-Cons are bigger as well. I could be confusing my rumors at this point, but I would hope that they are, just because, you know, that would help, one, with just holding them normally like this without having to hopefully use the whatever it's called, the weird handle thing you add on, the wrist strap thing. So that'd be nice if that's no longer really required, even though I almost never use it anyway. But also, it'll make it more comfortable for, you know, single Joy-Con use as well, assuming that's still going to be a priority for the system. So that's all really great. The new buttons are exciting, and of course, backwards compatibility, huge thing, really important. I'm so glad that's working. Although I do hope that one feature I am still hoping for from the Switch 2 is that games that upcoming Switch 2 games will still, in some cases, still work on the Switch 1. We don't know that for sure at this point, but I would love if they go, again, the full Game Boy Color route, where instead of just 2 cartridges, you have a third one as well. I don't have an example right now, but there's a black cartridge as well, which demonstrated that it worked on both systems. So you would get a black and white experience on the Game Boy. Playing it on the Game Boy Color, though, would give you the enhanced experience. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that in the case of the Switch 2 as well. Games that work on both systems, but you get the enhanced version on Switch 2. Whereas games that only work on Switch 2 will, again, have a physical component that only fit into the Switch 2. But again, I'm just kind of speculating at this point. Plus, this is still, just to be clear, all still a rumor. But I find this all incredibly credible, and it just makes a lot of sense. Because you would want, you would want a screen that looks bigger than the current Switch. That's like great for marketing and another reason to upgrade. So honestly, nothing here stands out to me as being a surprise. Again, minus the new button. So, but what do you think? What do you make of this? What do you guys think about all this? Let me know in the comments below. Are you excited for the new buttons? Do you want a bigger screen, 4K visuals, similar dock backwards compatibility with not just the games but the current controllers? I want to hear all about it. And what do you think that third freaking button right here is going to do? The one that would be, am I holding the right one? I am, yeah. The one that goes right there. What's that going to do? I don't know. I'm so curious to know. What is it? What's it for? I don't know. Let me know in the comments below, everyone. And with that, thanks for watching and hope you have a good weekend. Bye, everyone.